Bene, ora abbiamo in linea via Zoom Susan Maiorana del CoAsIt South Australia. Buon pomeriggio, Susan. Thank you for coming on to Radio Italia 1 Adelaide.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to your audience. And today we'd like to spend a little bit of time, if we could, with you talking a bit about, it's actually about something that's probably a bit difficult and uncomfortable to talk about, often difficult for families to talk about, but we want to sort of talk a little bit about what happens when we think that financial abuse could be happening with an older person. Not a comfortable subject to talk about at any time, but an important one.
Okay, that's one element of risk in the life of an elderly person. Last time we were talking about scams. There's risks as we get older. There are health risks, and when you're losing control of your environment, these sorts of things come up. Ok, oggi diceva Susan Maiorana si vorrebbe parlare dei rischi di abuso finanziario. Ha detto è un tema un po' difficile, non sempre facile da approcciare, e ho fatto presente che questo è uno dei rischi a cui si va a fronte con l'avanzare dell'età. Ci sono i rischi fisici, della salute e altri tipi di rischio. L'altra volta abbiamo parlato del rischio di frodi in vari modi. Okay, so I guess this might fall a bit under the scam risk, but you're talking maybe... No, I'll let you explain, introduce the topic.
Yeah, I think we're talking more about possibly what happens within friends and within families more so, and possibly a lot of the time it may not even be intentional. It may still be inadvertent. But most families, as we know, care deeply for their parents and their grandparents. But sometimes there can be some pressure around money or housing or decision-making that can lead to a situation where an older person does lose control of their finances or their property. It can often happen quietly and often involves someone the older person does trust. So whereas you said scams and fraud is probably from an external, source, this is possibly more likely to happen or can happen more easily within.
Allora, spiegando questo tipo di rischio, è più uno interno che può venire da amici o familiari. Il mese scorso si è parlato di frodi che vengono spesso al di fuori della famiglia, però questo tipo di rischio, precisato, Susan, non sempre è intenzionale, non sempre è fatto in modo esplicito. So you're saying that it's not always done on purpose or knowingly.
Possibly. I mean, look, I know of situations, and again, I can actually speak to it quite personally, that I have seen it where I believe it was probably quite intentional, but I'm sure a lot of the time it can be something that just somebody says, look, I know better than you, or Mum, you're no longer living in your home. We need to move you into a nursing home. Let's sell your house now while you're still alive. Is that a nice thing or a good thing to do, or is that just something that's expedient for the family? So I think the important message out of our conversation that we're going to have is that, older people have rights, and that there are services and opportunities in South Australia to get help, to get support if this happens. But we'll talk about that more toward the end. But I think that's the message that we want to sort of convey out of this as well.
Ecco, quindi precisava Susan, possono essere casi dove non è intenzionale questo abuso finanziario, però può succedere in casi dove magari la mamma o il papà non è più in controllo delle finanze, o è ora di andare in una casa di riposo e la famiglia dice forse è ora di vendere la casa, per esempio, e non sempre è la decisione migliore. E ci sono dei modi per arginare questi rischi. Okay, so what are the risks or the examples?
What are the sort of things that we're looking at? Yeah, some examples, it doesn't even look dramatic. It doesn't look intentional. It doesn't look fraudulent, but it sometimes can be sorts of things like a son or a daughter suggesting that they have access to their parents' bank accounts to help them control their spending. Someone, perhaps a son or daughter, has been appointed as the power of attorney, but they may be using that authority inappropriately. The one I just mentioned to you, that they might choose to or pressure an older person to sell their home earlier than the person is ready to do. They could even be really pressuring their elders to move into residential care or into a supported accommodation against their wishes, because it's more comfortable, expedient, suits the family more than the older person, etc. They may borrow money repeatedly and never repay it. And even so far as to go as isolating an older person from the family members and people that person wants to spend time with, the people they love in their family.
Ok, e quindi Susan ci ha dato alcuni esempi in cui questo rischio di abuso finanziario può accadere nel contesto non so, di un anziano che deve o deciso di andare in una casa di riposo e forse si vende una casa un po' prima di quanto questa persona volesse, o forse la famiglia può fare pressione sull'anziano o l'anziana di andare proprio in una casa di riposo. E ci diceva prima che gli anziani hanno diritti, ci sono modi per far valere i propri diritti. Altro esempio è che magari quando un figlio o una figlia può usare il conto o gestire il conto bancario dell'anziano, qui ci possono essere anche dei rischi in questo caso.
There are possibly things that a person can look out for, or other members of the family could look out for, various warning signs as well. And they could include things like sudden changes to bank accounts or to legal documents, wills being changed and altered that, people aren't aware of, missing money or unexplained withdrawals, which is sort of what we've talked about, being pressured to sign a document that you're not familiar with or you're not sure about, or you don't know why you're signing something, speaking on behalf of an older person when they're still capable of speaking on their own. Sometimes an older person, if they don't want to talk about it or don't want to disclose, or they know something's wrong but they're not really sure what to do, they might become anxious when you start talking about money, or they might demonstrate some sign of anxiety. It would be terrible to be told that they're a burden or that they must give money. I mean, that's probably the low end of the ranking. You would hate to think that that's the sort of thing that happened. But, we do hear of stories where people are really subjected to some pretty uncomfortable times.
Sì, alcuni esempi che ci ha dato Susan sono dei segnali che uno può trovare, che magari il conto bancario cambia in modo repentino, importante, o magari la persona, l'individuo, l'anziano diventa agitato o sembra nervoso, ansioso quando si parla di finanze. Questi possono essere indicazioni che qualcosa che non va. Poi magari se qualcuno, chi si cura dell'anziano, comincia a dire che è diventata un peso o che costa troppo fare le cure, sono casi, diciamo, un po' più brutti e difficili da capire. Però si sono visti, si vedono.
Yeah. There's probably some practical tips that we could suggest to people so that they don't necessarily get into this situation. Particularly things like just taking your time before you sign anything, get a second opinion, ask somebody else that you trust to review a document with you, make sure that you really are knowing what you're signing, especially when it comes to anything that has is a legal document or a financial document. Make sure that you really know what you are doing. And a lot of the time people don't, even under the best of circumstances, we don't always know what we're signing. So again, speak with an independent advisor or somebody who you trust. keep copies of all your financial documents, and that includes even documents that relate to the aged care system. I mean, we're working with older people at the moment who are, part of a federal government system, which is quite complex to navigate. And we encourage all the clients of CoAsIt to retain all their documents and their letters and things from My Aged Care and their referral letters and their budget information, that sort of thing. That it's okay to ask questions and seek advice. People are not always confident that they can do that, but, please encourage people to do that. And your power of attorney can be used in your best interests.
What does that mean?
It's a good question. I guess to know that you've got a trusted power of attorney, somebody that you do trust, that they are acting in your best interests, and engage them, use them, bring them into your discussion or to any of your decision making, so that you know that you've got the person who's got your back, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Lì ho chiesto a Susan di spiegare un po' l'ultimo punto per quanto riguarda le procure, che ha detto può essere usato per il tuo vantaggio, e quindi magari capire assolutamente che la persona a cui si dà la procura è di fiducia e che ha il tuo interesse a cuore, e portarli magari nelle conversazioni e far capire cosa vuoi fare e come vuoi gestire la tua vita. E altri così accorgimenti di cui parlava Susan è sempre tenere documentazioni, lettere per esempio da My Aged Care, documenti che vengono firmati, chiedere seconde opinioni, non necessariamente accettare quello che ti dice una persona, forse non perché necessariamente questa persona ti vuole del male, però può anche non capire tutto ciò che comporta la decisione che ti indicano di prendere.
Good. Honestly, don't have a lot more to say on that at this point. Have you got any other questions, Antonio?
It's big.
Or thinking that it's coming to your mind?
Yeah, but it's actually what you are saying. One point is, as the context for this is that older people have rights.
Yes.
And they have the rights, legal rights, but also need to have dignity in their decision making and how they live their lives. And that's, I think, the context in which this comes up, because there are other forms of abuse. Because we might think normally of physical abuse or emotional abuse. And the financial aspect can be one that they might find difficulty in approaching.
It is hard.
I remember once when I went to a financial advisor with my father. My brother was there, and my father's his first thing was, I want to make sure that I leave something for the children. And the financial advisor said, no. We fix your life first. You've got to have a dignified life, and then when you pass, you can think about looking after or leaving something for the children. And so the thinking or the approach might already put them in a, let's say, disadvantage.
But most, particularly, typically, like you're saying, the Italian families that I'm familiar with, it's all about their family first. Like you've just said, it is about making sure, they'll scrimp and save even up until, their 90th year, to ensure that their children have, X amount of dollars or assets or realisable, property when they pass, rather than thinking about themselves. So, but it's also, I think, even a cultural thing for the situation that I can talk to personally is with it's with an older woman, but her son was particularly taking the lead as the patriarch of the family. And that was probably a fairly typical scenario that she perhaps felt that she didn't have the authority to question, because he was the man of the house, once her husband had passed away. And so he was stripping her assets considerably, and in an unauthorised way. And that's not very, not a great thing either.
What can we do?
Well, I think it's just, in the first instance, it is more about knowing that you can speak up and you can question, and that an older person doesn't have to sign on the dotted line on the day. They can get advice. They could have somebody with them to talk through situations with them. There, of course, are some support services in Adelaide. But Lisa's just joined us, and she's just going to talk a little bit more, because you're asking about the power of attorney as well. Yep. And Lisa's got a bit that she'd like to share with you about that as well.
Yeah, about setting up.
There's Lisa.
It's about setting up an enduring power of attorney.
Yes.
Because often that gets set up and then it gets activated straight away. So for the older person, it seems like everything gets taken out of their hands. But this doesn't have to be so. So you can set up an enduring power of attorney, but you can make it activate only when a medical practitioner has said that you don't have capacity to make your own decisions. And you can even set it up so that then your lawyer will have the capacity to sort of help you out before it gets activated. So obviously there is a lot of rationale about getting it set up immediately, and it's about people who might be in early stages of dementia, or they might be terminally ill, and that is really a different process. But for most people who want to really protect their autonomy, setting up the enduring power of attorney, and it's particularly called in that part of it is specific, and making sure that the lawyer who's setting it up with you knows that you want to value your autonomy, and makes it that without that medical practitioner's contribution and indication that your capacity is reduced, that you keep the autonomy.
Ok, questo è un punto importante, molto interessante, di cui ci ha spiegato Lisa. Allora, la procura, l'enduring power of attorney, può essere creato in qualsiasi momento, però non è necessario che inizi proprio in quel momento. Quindi diceva Lisa che può essere stipulato in modo che quando un medico dice che questa persona non è più capace di intendere o prendere decisioni, allora comincia la procura, e lo si può spiegare all'avvocato che sì, adesso stiamo dando la procura, però per il momento le facoltà della persona sono ancora intatte, e quindi si inizia, si mette in moto per poi cominciare più tardi. È un po' diverso se la persona già ha della demenza e quindi ha perso le facoltà, le capacità di prendere decisioni. Ed è importante sempre dire, se vuoi mantenere controllo sulle proprie decisioni. Qui si parla degli anziani. Yes, important twist up. And as you said, Lisa, you can set it up, but to start at a future date when the person is certified somehow about
reduced capacity to make decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Important. Okay. I will say now thank you to Susan and Lisa from CoAsIt, and this regular appointment that we have. Important considerations, but also important positive aspects that you've presented about how to deal with these risks.
Yeah, well, there are, as mentioned, there are 3 or 4 services that they can contact. There's the Adult Safeguarding Unit in South Australia, which is through the health thing. There's an Elder Abuse National Helpline. There's an Aged Rights Advocacy Service. So there are services definitely that are very Googleable, or I can even send you the list of those services at another time, and you could have them, available, or we could, share them somehow if you like.
Googleable is a nice word. Good one.
Sorry?
Googleable is a good word.
Yeah.
Ci stava dicendo, scusa, ci sono vari servizi che uno può usare se vede o teme che ci sia un rischio di un abuso, e si possono trovare facilmente su Google facendo delle ricerche, e uno di quelli è ARAS, ARAS, si fa una ricerca, è un gruppo che aiuta individui per sostenere i propri diritti. E comunque potete chiedere attraverso CoAsIt e forse anche altre agenzie che si interessano alla vita degli
And we're always happy to talk to anybody. If anybody just wants to ring our number, which is 8223 3311, and have a chat with us about something that they might be concerned about, we could at least start to steer them in the right direction.
8223 3311?
Yes.
Cool, so I'm passing the test. 8223 3311 è il numero del CoAsIt. Ok, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.